The connections have been just real natural and mostly just me hitting people up, sliding into their DMs and just like, hey bro, like, or sis, you wanna write a song? Like, let's do this. And no one said no so far.
I think we had just moved here to Tennessee, and there was a few songs that he started showing me for the new album that is about to come out. And he showed me this one. And
I had COVID at the time. Remember that? I couldn't sing at all.
So he showed me a voice memo.
And I was like crying through the whole.
He was just crying, and it was a voice memo, but it was a really scruffy voice.
It's super scruffy.
And so I loved I was like, I think this is it. I think that you need, this is like the heart of the record. I just had to read between the lines of Cory's COVID scruffy voice.
But it was like getting wrecked by the idea that
Yes.
Gabriel, our oldest,
we just cried and cried.
was growing up.
It was
He like had just hit puberty and all this weird stuff.
It was a really intense time of parenting as well, because he's our first. We have the 4, like he said, and he's our only boy, and he's just
becoming a man.
He was becoming a man, and as parents, we were trying to like navigate, like, whoa, he's not a little boy anymore.
Yeah.
And then he writes this song, and we were just a mess.
The line at the end of that bridge, the sometimes growing up feels like goodbye.
Yeah.
I think, you raise kids and anybody watching, you know what we're talking about. Like you watch them grow up and you watch them go through these different phases and stages, and it's almost like you have to say goodbye to each little stage. You say goodbye to the baby stage, then you say goodbye to the toddler stage. You say goodbye to the, little 5 or 6-year-old stage, so cute. But you've got to kind of let that go and even let that person go that the kid was and go, he or she is growing up. I've got to reckon with that. But there's something, I guess, beautifully, heavily painful about the idea that growing up is goodbye. Like I barely see my parents anymore. Like we spend all of our time with them up until a certain age, and then it's like things change, they're different. So I think just trying to remember, like, I got to cherish these moments because I'm only gonna have Gabriel for like 5 more years. It's crazy. It's a very sad time capsule.
Well, and Cory likes sad, but for me, I don't like sad, so I don't like to think about it too much. I'm like, we have so much time. It's okay. We're not gonna go there right now. And Cory's like, let's cry. Let's think about how it's gonna feel and enjoy how the sadness feels.
It's weird.
His happy is sad.
I think it's easier to write something you feel, like it's easy to tap into an emotion and get something from that place, from that spot. And I think sadness tends to be an easily accessible one for me, for whatever reason. And I'm like the happiest person in the world. Like I'm the happiest dude you ever met, but there's something to depth of emotion that I think helps you go, okay, I need to write something from this place and hopefully give language to people that feel the stuff that we feel, but they don't necessarily know how to process it. And I think that's the job of the artist or the songwriter or the poet or the prophet or whatever you want to call them, is to hopefully give words to the stuff that's common to all of us. I get in my feels sometimes.
He's pretty, honestly, he just goes and goes and goes, and then I think his processing is the songwriting.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'll be like having a day and I'm like processing through every moment and expressing that. But if he is going through something that he needs to almost be like, it's time for therapy, let's write a song.
Sheesh. That's tough, man. I mean, These Are the Days, the ones we just did, that's a big one for sure. I think of a song called My Inheritance. That, is a very like Christian-y title or whatever, but for me, like, I grew up with a dad who was rough in a lot of ways. Wasn't the typical amazing dad that you always call and how you doing, bud? I'm so proud of you. It wasn't that kind of thing. It was a lot of difficulty in the home as a young man, and I think processing that with a lot of like anger, even like frustration, even at God, like why would you give me this dad that I didn't feel like I got a lot from. I felt like I just got hurt and pain and, some suffering out of it, right? And I think processing that song with a guy named Shane Stevens who wrote Fancy Like, and then my producer and songwriting buddy, Paul Mabry, we just sat there and we were like, what if, things never really look the way you think they're gonna look. Like you look at your life 10 years down the road, like, this is where I'm gonna be. And then you actually get there and you're like, dang, like this is a little different. I think that's one of those songs where I was like, man, I expected to get a certain thing from my family and my upbringing, and I got a lot of difficult circumstances, but it made me who I was supposed to be. It's kind of the stupid, goofy little adage, like what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Like, I really believe in that. Like I have such value for suffering and for dealing with the stuff that life gives us, and it always looks different. But my dad gave me a love for music. He owned a record store growing up, and he gave me my first guitar. And the line in the song is, maybe this guitar, like he didn't say a whole lot of other things to me that were nice, but maybe that guitar was his I believe in you, son. And that changed my life, because songwriting is everything, like she said. Like that's the way I process and kind of figure out life. But I think that's the song where I feel like I'm still living and still gaining so much wisdom from even the difficulty of growing up with a parent who was kind of hard, And I think a lot of people can relate to that. Like a lot of our upbringings weren't as awesome as we'd hoped. But I think if we lean into it, if we lean into that suffering and let it teach us, there's a lot of wisdom to be found from that pain. It's always painful to say, hey, our relationship was hard. You know what I mean? Like it's never...
Because you have to share it. Like his dad has done a lot of changing in the years.
True.
He's a really amazing grandfather, and he recognizes some of the things that he did wrong.
And we've had a lot of those hard conversations, where I was able to say to him, like, hey, Dad, it was really difficult growing up in your home. But we've talked through it, and I think, I'm always a little wary, apprehensive to send him some of these songs, because for him to constantly have to go, I remember I wasn't everything I wanted to be when you were little, or even when you were a teenager, that's painful. But at the same time, there's such redemption in it. And I asked him one day, like, are you cool with this? Like, are you cool with, I kind of put some of this stuff on display? And he was like, man, if it helps even one person, like, I'm good with it.
Such a humble and humble response.
Yeah.
He's, I think, in some ways, the way that he walks out fatherhood in ways is letting Cory tell a story about something that is vulnerable for him, and that's in ways that's his way of going, like, this is how I can mend some of the things that I wish I hadn't have been like.
Yeah. No, I don't even remember how we got connected, honestly. Just random. And I walked into the studio that day, and he and Paul were already there. They'd been there for like 15, 20 minutes, and Shane was just like bawling, like just crying his eyes out, like just kind of bearing his heart. Yeah, he was listening to the music, and then he started to share kind of his relationship with his dad, which was considerably more difficult than mine for a lot of reasons. He started sharing a real specific story, and we were all like, bro, like we can find common ground in that, even though his situation was a little more intense, in some ways. We're like, dude, that's very relatable, and we're like, we gotta write this song. So yeah, it's cool getting to know him, and he's an amazing guy. He just texted right before we got here, because that song comes out like this Friday. So he's like, can you send it to me? I want to start like telling people about it. Yeah.
You hadn't sent it to him?
No, that's my fault, Shane. Sorry, deepest apologies.
How did you meet Tom?
I just reached out to him. It's the same way, like every single time, every connection's been super organic.
Yeah, you just reach out.
And I played basketball with all these country dudes over at Ashley Gorley's house, who lives right next to Tom. And I've gotten to know all these guys, and I love them. Like, they're incredible dudes, incredible guys. And I think when we first moved here, I reached out to Paul Mabry, my producer, who I was talking about a little earlier, and I was like, dude, let's write some country songs. Just because I think I get bored or like burnt out doing the same thing for a long time. And I even get bored with some of the cultural elements of like Christian music. And I was like, dude, let's write like some narrative-driven songs that people can relate to, because that's the stuff that touches me. Like, I listen to Lee Bryce's, which actually I think it's Nicole Galliant's Boy. And that song destroyed me. Like, there's so many songs that lean that sort of country direction, that are narrative-driven, that are story songs, that I think just hit people so hard, and they circumnavigate some of the typical walls that I think people have in their hearts. to certain types of music or certain ideas even.
I remember the first time Stephen Curtis Chapman invited you.
Yeah.
He invited him
at
Ryman to do like songwriters just on display.
There's a bunch of Christian, bunch of country, and I sat there just wrecked by the music, by the songs.
But
the
then
songwriting
also
was so
by
beautiful.
the crowd and the response to the songs.
I was just so amazed at the way songs hit people. And I watched a father and a daughter sit there like this and just weep over a song, and I was like, dang, like that's the power of great songwriting. And so when we moved here, I just said, hey, let's write some songs, and I'm very relational, so I just like hit people up on Instagram. I hit up Lori McKenna. I was like, hey, like, will you write with us? Like, and I always say, hey, I wrote this song called Reckless Love, because that's what people know, and it tends to open doors for whatever reason. Even if they're not like fully like Jesus-leaning folks, they're like, dude, I love that song, or I get it, or whatever. So I hit up Lori, I hit up Tom Douglas, I hit up Shay Mooney, I hit up Morgan, I hit up all these people, and we just connected and wrote a bunch of songs, and it was like super fun getting to know a totally different world, and even in a way, a totally different way of writing a song. Tom Douglas has been, such a father to Paul and me. Like the first time he stood in the room, he was like, what you're doing is right. It's gonna touch people. Like he was such a like generational father, and just like encouraged the heck out of it. He's like, I'm in your corner, dude. Like whatever you want to write, I'm with you. I'm so proud of these songs, etc., etc. It was really sweet. So
he also said, go to church, don't get weird.
Yeah, he said, go to church and don't get weird, which I love. Because I am kind of weird. But yeah, it's the connections have been just real natural and organic. Mostly just me hitting people up, sliding into their DMs, and just like, hey bro, like, or sis, you wanna write a song? Like, let's do this. And no one said no so far, which is pretty incredible.
Or they just ghosted you.
No one has.
No one's ghosted you?
Not a single one. Actually, Shane McAnally said, yes, I want to, but I'm out of town until like next year. So he's in like Europe or something. So who knows? Well, hi Shane, if you're watching. To a certain extent, I think you look at it, and this record we're about to release is called Pioneer. We wrote probably 50 or 60 songs, maybe more. And then we kind of looked at it strategically, and I think your question is right on. We were going like, we've got like 3 million monthly listeners on Spotify. We can't just like leave those folks behind, because they know Reckless Love. Like that's what they know of Cory. He's the worship guy. He's the Reckless Love guy. So if we just started writing these songs in a completely different lane, I feel like it would leave them behind.
Confused.
Yeah, confused. And we were like, man, we've got to have a project that's almost a bridge. And that's what we were calling this record, this Pioneer record. It's just called the Bridge Project. Meaning it's a bridge from one world and one way of doing things to another. Not necessarily because I need to go over here and become a country guy or a country whatever, but because I love the tradition of the beauty of country music writing. I think there's such value to that, and even bringing that back into this world over here. So I wouldn't say I'm scared of it, but I've definitely counted the cost. And when some folks are gonna go, he doesn't love God anymore, he doesn't love Jesus, whatever. And I'm like, if that's what they want to think, they can think that. And that's very much my personality. I'm like an 8 on the Enneagram, just do not care what people think or feel. It's just kind of where I'm at. But at the same time, I'm like, I want to bring them along on the story. And I want to help them understand where I'm trying to go. And where I'm trying to go is just writing great songs. Wherever they land, I'm happy. As long as they speak to people and hopefully change lives, whatever that looks like, I'm good with that. That felt like the thesis statement. That felt like the one core sort of message on the record that told people where we're going and what we're doing. And when we sat with Lori, that's kind of what I said. Like, hey, we need to write this song. That song was written with Lori McKenna, who's absolute flippin' saint, and every one of her songs makes me cry. She's got such a way with lyric and emotion, and just so human, and it's wild. She's definitely a hero. So the fact that she said yes and sat down with us, I just kind of said, Lori, this is what we need to write. It needs to feel like the statement song of what we're doing and where we're going, to help people make sense of maybe a different sound or a different direction or whatever. And we just talked. I just said a bunch of stuff to her. And then she goes, well, this is what I hear you saying. And literally just spat out like so many of those lines, spat out the chorus, and I was like, yes, that's exactly right. That's it, you know? And we just launched right into that song, and she had the line, "The promise is the same," which basically the idea is you might be doing it a little different now. It might look a little different, it might sound a little different. Like you mentioned, there's a different sonic sort of vibe to the music, but the promise is the same, that he's with us, and that we're with him, and we're doing it hand in hand, and we're walking together, and Jesus is just as much with us in this as he was in the writing of Reckless Love. And I think that'll be a message that's difficult for people to grasp. But yeah, that line, they might say I'm a sinner, they might say A, B, and C, but I find peace in holy ground in a little farmhouse, down in Thompson Station. We got like almost 8 acres, and that's where I find peace, man. That's where I find God, sitting out there on the land, and I feel like we found so much healing out in that spot. So yeah, hopefully people get it. But yeah, those lines are definitely the crux of it. Like, because we were having a bunch of those caliber writers coming over, and we were like, God, we gotta compile our best ideas. Like, we gotta be ready, And
what he does is the night before, he's going through his phone, looking at all his
I'm going
voice
through all the
messages.
notes.
Like, what do I have? What do I have to bring to the table? And you don't normally do that. Normally,
I mean, you try to come prepared, but I think there's a different
there was
level
a different level
when you're with folks like that, because I mean, it's not like you want to like show off and be, oh, I got all these cool ideas, like, who cares? But I think you appreciate their artistry and their craftsmanship and the way that they're so excellent at what they do. You want to try to match that energy, So I think I was going through my notes, like she said. I was going through my voice memos. And I compiled a big long list. I still have in my phone, ideas for Lori. And, basically spouted a bunch of those off. And when I said that kind of idea, that's when she was like, boom, let's do that. Like, that's what I want to write. She was amazing. She was awesome. She made us feel incredible. And then she actually came over to the studio more recently, probably like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, because I wanted her to sing on the song. So she sang a duet on The Promise is the Same that'll be on like a deluxe version, in however many months it'll come out. And she sounds ridiculous. And she kept saying, is this okay? Is this okay? And we were like, this is incredible. So yeah, there was a lot of fear and trembling before that one.
I love Pioneer. Pioneer will always be my favorite. When we moved to Tennessee, we did our first Just Us tour. It was basically very much like this, just us two, him on the acoustic, and then keys with us. And we went out and we toured like that, and we took one kid at a time with us, so they got one-on-one time with us. And Pioneer, we did Pioneer every night. And at the time, it was very much, and is still very much, the heartbeat, I think, of our family, of our marriage, just the message of it. And I think it feels like the foundation of our home in a way. So I think I'll always look back on this album, even the name is that, and feel like that's kind of how we established the foundation and the message of that song in our time here, putting our roots down in Tennessee.
We've been working on the record for over a year, easy, for sure. Probably more like a year and a half, honestly. And there was so much like tumult over the whole deal, like trying to figure it out, how to release it, how to bring it to people, how to make it make sense. And we were calling it The Bridge, and I feel like all of a sudden one day it hit, like this is a Pioneer project. Like this is going into an uncharted territory in some ways. And it's you look at the Pioneers back in the day, and like it was not an easy lifestyle. They left behind friends, they left behind family. Anything that they couldn't fit on a daggum wagon, they were just like, all right, it's staying here, we're going. And I think there's something to that that's like we're pushing on into what God's calling us to do, whether it's easy or not, whether it feels comfortable or not, which it does not feel comfortable at all.
And there's no one to really tell you or to look to. When you're pioneering something, there's not really anybody to say, this is how you pioneer.
Yeah.
You just have to follow the voice of God in your life.
Yeah.
And
so we looked at the songs and we were like,
Sounds like
kind of what this is. Like, we're just pressing on.
Haven't ever really seen anybody do this before, so here we go.
We're heading out west, and hopefully we don't get cholera and die or something, you know?
So morbid.
Yeah, a song called Only Jesus for My Pain that I'm very, very excited. I put like a little snippet, you know, on Instagram one day, and it felt like it really connected to people. But honestly, just dealing with life, and I've had like chronic pain in my back since we got married, so 20-ish. And some days are good, some days are bad, you know, and I've always wrestled with it. I've kind of been angry at God about it at different times, like couldn't even run with my kids for years, you know, that kind of thing, and couldn't play, whatever, and just tried everything, just searched high and low for something to fix me, and nothing ever did. And I think whether I'm ever healed or not, on this side of time, I guess, just going, only Jesus for my pain. Whether he fixes it or not, he's with me, he gets it. He dealt with some pain as well. So I'm stoked for that one. I'll share more of the story, but I'm definitely stoked for that one. Yeah, absolutely, 100%, 100%. Before we went on this, we did like did we call it the Pioneer Tour?
Yes.
Called it the Pioneer Tour. Idiots, we're so dumb. We are, not y'all. We did a Pioneer Tour before the daggum record was out, which is not the smartest thing in the world. So I was freaking out, man. I tried to cancel the tour the night before. We were about to head to the bus, and I called my business manager. I said, what is it gonna cost me to cancel this entire tour? She said like $800,000. I was like, all right, I'm doing it. But yeah, I was scared out of my mind because it's weird, you know, people don't know the music and you're going out to do the music. But you know, the music was supposed to be out, and that's a whole nother story. It was just a cluster, man. But it's finally gonna be out, so I'm stoked about that. People will be able to hear it. Yeah, I was scared. Yes, I was scared.
But he did it.
We will, yeah. We're working up to it. I gotta get my heart right after that last one. Yeah, it was good. Yeah, the tour was amazing. Ended up being absolutely incredible. The nights were amazing, but boy, was I stressed out of my mind. Lord have mercy. Honestly, My Inheritance, people were kind of wrecked by My Inheritance, which I love. They gave like a standing ovation every time at like the third verse or whatever. But they really connected to all of them. It was crazy. Like they'd be singing along to songs that they'd never even heard by like the third chorus, you know? So it was beautiful, and the support was amazing and incredible. I was just worried, I was stressed. It's all good though. I'm not sure any of these songs.
It didn't inspire a song in general, but it changed the whole way that you viewed life.
For sure. I mean, it changed, I feel like, the trajectory of our lives. But there's a record called To Love a Fool that came out in 2020 that was basically very much a direct result, it felt like, of that year off for our family, where I didn't write a single thing. I didn't connect with anyone. I wasn't trying to do like songwrites or whatever for pretty much 8 months of that year. And then all of a sudden, it felt like a faucet turned on in my head that I could not turn off, of songs and ideas and melodies and stuff. And I think I wrote that whole record in like that summer, like 3-4 weeks or something. But I don't think any of these songs, I think these songs are very much like from here, like kind of born in Nashville, Tennessee, and sort of the things that we were going through as a family, dealing with, you know, good and bad, that kind of stuff. But that year off was important to our lives, for sure. And I'm sure in a way, indirectly, you know, much of what continues to come out is a result of that time.
Yeah.